Hi, this is Bonnie Barker with BonnieBakeCrochet.com, and you have come to video number 3 to show you how to crochet the third square in the Aran Sampler Mystery Throw. For this square, I'm going to be using Red Heart with Love. This is some yarn left over in my stash. The color is called Mallard, if you're following along with me. I'm hoping to get at least 1.5, possibly 2 squares out of this. Each square is going to require approximately 200 yards, so I'll probably need more than 2 for the 4 squares that I'm going to be crocheting with this. Alright, well, let's go ahead and get started. I also just wanted to remind you that you can use any yarn that you have in your stash. So let me go ahead and cut that knot out of that yarn. Okay, so you can use any worsted weight yarn in your stash, and I'm going to be mixing it up. If you don't want to do all 4 squares of square number 3 the same, that's quite all right. I think it'd be kind of fun to do it in, each one in a different color if you have that available. Anyway, just to review, I'm using same hook, size J or 10 or 6.00 millimeter. And to finish this, I'm also going to need a size I or 5.5 millimeter or size 9. But we're going to go ahead and start with our larger hook, which is the J or 10. Make our slip knot, and just like we did with the other 2 squares, we're going to start with a chain of 46. So I'm going to go ahead and make my 46 chains. Okay, now that I have my chain, my foundation chain of 46, I'm going to go ahead and, starting in the 3rd chain from the hook, I'm going to half double crochet in that stitch and then each stitch across. So go ahead and do your row of half double crochets. And while you're doing this, I just wanted to also mention that should you need a written pattern, I know I prefer to follow a written pattern a lot of times. If you look at the video, there should be a description there, and if you look closely, there will be a link to my Ravelry page. Each week, as a square is added, I'm going to update that pattern. So for example, on week 1, it will just have square 1. On week 2, it will have square 1 and 2. So each week I'm adding to this mystery throw to keep it a mystery throw. So by the end of this, the entire pattern will be there. If you go ahead and download the pattern, it's going to be free from my Ravelry page. Each week, I believe you'll be prompted by my Ravelry page that I have updated the pattern. And that way, it's just a reminder that you can download that free pattern so that you can follow along with the written with the written language as well. For those of you who've never learned to read crochet patterns, this could be an excellent way to get more familiar with a lot of the crochet abbreviations and terminology. And I encourage you to do that, because once you learn to read patterns, it really opens up a whole new world of crocheting. You will no longer be limited to whatever videos are released. You can, feel free to, look at any pattern and hopefully be empowered to accomplish what the written words have there for you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish this, and I'll get back. Okay, after we finished row 1 all the way across, we should have 44 half double crochets in this row. Okay, we're going to chain 2. I'm going to turn, and this is going to be a little different than the first 2 squares. I'm going to just work 1 half double crochet in that first stitch. Now we're going to be working a combination of post stitches and a stitch that I'm calling the wheat stitch. Okay, we're going to start by using the post stitches. We're just going to do 1 front post double crochet in each of the first 2 stitches. Okay, so these post stitches are going to frame the stitch that we're going to demonstrate now, that I'm going to show you now. Okay, so for the wheat stitch, it's very similar. Actually, it's exactly like row 2 of square number 2. Well, not exactly, but the way the stitch is formed is the same. We're going to skip 2 stitches, and we're going to front post treble crochet in the next 2 stitches. Remember, those post stitches, you're working around the stitch and giving it a belt. Okay, now we're going to work behind these 2 stitches that we just made, and we're going to front post treble in these 2 stitches. Remember, this was a tricky part where you come around and then we're going to work around these stitches. You can kind of pop your thumb up there. It makes it very easy, or easier, to grab those stitches. Okay, and for the second one, I'm going to come down here and try to find that the stitches right there, so you can see that. This is admittedly the trickier part of the stitch, but once you do it a few hundred times, it's remarkable how easy it becomes. Now we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, and we're going to front post treble crochet in the next 2 stitches. Now this is the easier part. Working in front of the last 2 stitches just made, we're going to front post treble in those 2 skipped stitches. Okay, so this is what we should have with that cable. The cable is going to be going, opposite directions. Okay, and the next 2 stitches, now make sure that we don't double dip here and use a stitch more than once, because it looks like that stitch is available, but actually it's part of the stitch with the treble. So the next 2 stitches, we're just going to simply work front post double crochets. These are more border stitches. So let me take a stop here. So these stitches here are going to go straight up, kind of as borders, and this one as well. And this is where your stitch is going to come out. So that's what we're going to repeat all the way across. Okay, we're going to go ahead. We're going to do the wheat stitch over these 8 stitches, and then 2 border stitches. That is our repeat. Skip 2 stitches here. Let's go ahead and do another one. Front post treble in the next 2 stitches. Working in front of the 2 stitches that we just completed, we come in and we do 2 front post trebles in the skip stitches. Locate those stitches. Go ahead, complete your trebles. Front post treble crochets. Now for the second part of this, skip 2 stitches. Front post treble the next 2. Working in front of the last 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble into 2 skipped stitches. And after we do that cable, we're going to do 2 front post double crochets. Again, these are our border stitches. Okay, so let's stop and see what we have after working 2 cables. Okay, I'm going to continue this across the row until I get to the last 2 stitches. Okay, I've come all the way to the end of the row. This is row 2, and I'm going to work my 2 front post double crochets, and that's going to leave us 1 stitch. And go ahead and work in the top loops and work your half double crochet at the end of that row. So this is what you should have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 wheat cables begun with the 2 front post double crochets in between each cable. All right, so that's row 2. So I'm going to chain 2, turn, and this is with the back side facing. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start row 3. We're going to half double crochet in that first stitch, which should also be the half double crochet of the last row. And just like the square 1 and 2, we are going to work our back post double crochet in each stitch all the way across the row. So just back post double crochets. once I get all the way across the row to the last half double crochet, just half double crochet, working through the loops in that half double crochet. Let's go ahead and chain 2. I'm going to turn, and this helps give a little more definition to what we're doing. So for the remainder of this square, we are going to repeat rows 2 and 3. We're going to repeat them 11 more times, which would be a total of 25 rows once we finish from row 1 to 25. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. I'll show you the first repeat of row 2, which is half double crochet in that first stitch, and front post double crochet in the next 2 stitches. Now this is where the wheat cable starts to get its definition. We're going to skip 2, and we're just repeating row 2, which means front post treble crochet in the next 2 stitches, and then working behind these 2 stitches, front post treble in the 2 skipped stitches. Okay, skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble crochet in the next 2 stitches, and now working in front of the 2 stitches just work here, we're going to front post treble in those 2 skipped stitches, and then follow that with 2 front post double crochets. Okay, I'm going to pause and take a look at this. So I just wanted to show you how this cable just continues to come out from the center. The idea is for it to look like a wheat sheath. So that's what we're shooting for. And then again with the 2 border stitches on each side. So go ahead and repeat rows 2 and 3 11 more times. There will be a total of 12 repeats if you count the first repeat of row 2 and 3. Or not, it's not a repeat, it's actually the first time you do that, and then plus 11 more repeats. And if you include the foundation row here, you'll have a total of 25 rows. So go ahead and complete that. Okay, after completing the 25 rows, I wanted to show you what my square looks like. It's a little bit curly on the bottom, but I'm not going to worry about that because we are far from done with this. So you can see the cables, the wheat cables with the 2 front post double crochets in between. It kind of helps to give this stitch a definition. Otherwise, if we didn't put the definition of these rows in between, it looks very similar to to the square number 1, unless you look really closely. Okay, now we're ready to work our border round. Okay, so we were working with the wrong side facing, and before we do any more, the first thing we need to do is we need to change our hook size, because when we do our perimeter rounds, we want to make sure we're using our smaller hook. So I'm going to get rid of the J hook, and I'm going to pick up my I or 9 crochet hook. Now if you need to use a smaller hook, if you find that your perimeter rounds are very wavy and very full and not lying as flat as you'd like it to, feel free to even go to a size H hook if you need to. But I'm pretty happy with what I get with an I hook, so I'm gonna go with that. I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to turn back with the front side facing. I think the single crochet perimeter looks much better with the front side than the back side showing. And I am going to work a single crochet just like we've done on the other 2 squares all the way across to the last stitch of the row. Okay, I've worked all the way across. I did not work in the turning chain. My last stitch was in that half double crochet, and you need to have 44 stitches all the way across. That's very important that we keep that 44 count going. I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to turn my square 90 degrees to work along the edges. Put my first single crochet along this row in the same place as the last of the previous row, so that I form a corner. with the chain 2. Now, including this stitch, I'm going to work 44 stitches evenly across the row ends all the way to the next corner. Actually, I'm going to end, my last stitch is going to be in the first stitch of the foundation chain. Okay, so go ahead and work those 44 stitches as evenly as you can all the way across. Okay, I've worked 44 stitches all the way from the corner, first corner stitch to corner, and I'm going to go ahead and chain 2, turn 90 degrees, and put a single crochet in the same place where I worked the last to form a corner, and then I'm going to now work along the foundation row where the chain was. Now, since I went ahead and put one in the corner here, I'm going to skip this first stitch. This stitch actually replaces this stitch, and the reason I'm doing this is I'm trying to maintain that 44 count. So just like we've done previously, just go ahead using the remainder of what's left of that chain. In my case, there are 2 strands left. So go ahead, and if you're having a hard time finding the foundation chain, one way to do this is to look the opposite where the last stitch was made, or the first stitch rather, like the stitch was here. Just go opposite that, and it should be fairly easy to see when you look at where the stitch was. Okay, so go ahead and do that to the corner, and then chain 2 at the end of that, and turn and continue up the other side of the rows, and then I'll show you how to connect at the end. After working up the second side of the row ends, I'm going to chain 2, I'm going to turn, and I'm going to slip stitch to the very first single crochet of the perimeter round. Go ahead and give it a chain and a tug, and go ahead and cut, leaving a nice strand for hiding these loose ends at the end. So I've gone ahead and I've finished the first perimeter round using the main color. Now again, if you are making your mystery throw all the same color, you do not have to do this next step, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go around this perimeter one more time with a contrasting color. Alright, I've got my contrasting color, and I'm going to attach it in a different place. It doesn't really matter where you do this on the square. I'm going to pick any chain 2 corner and go ahead and join, and we're going to do the same thing that we just did with the perimeter. We're going to start in a corner, do a single crochet, and make sure you don't skip that first single crochet stitch, and single crochet all the way across. I'm actually crocheting over this little strand here, so it's one less strand to hide in the end. So go ahead all the way across and then crochet your single crochet in that chain 2 corner. An important reminder, you will have 46 stitches across on each side. Okay, so make sure that you have 46 stitches from corner to corner on each side of your square. So I'm going to go ahead and just finish the perimeter round, and then I'll show you that in the end. It's exactly what we had just done with the blue color. You're just going to have 46 stitches all the way across. After working my last single crochet in the same place where I first joined this round, chain 2, and then slip stitch in the first single crochet of the round, and give it a chain, give it a tug, and go ahead and leave a nice long strand for hiding later. Go ahead and give that a tug. So let's go ahead and take a look at this square. Okay, so that completes square number 3. I'm going to go ahead and make 3 more of these for a total of 4 for the throw that I'm doing. However, like I said before, if you wanted to make each of these 4 in this design of a different color, feel free to do whatever you like. If you want to do them all, the entire project, all one color, that you are totally free to do that. You are the designer. So I look forward to seeing you next week when we learn square number 4. God bless. Bye-bye.